I wanted to ask you about basketball because we keep hearing that the Nets are going to trade Kevin Durant. And first it was, well, he wants to go to the Heat. Now he wants to go to the Suns. And now all of a sudden it's the Boston Celtics who are in the mix. Where ultimately does he end up? And if he goes to Boston, is this a smart move?
Durant's going to stay in Brooklyn, and so is Kyrie Irving.
Yep.
One, it's the best chance for him to win. And two, nobody can afford the price that the Nets are asking. And the Nets are asking for this price. I'm going to put tinfoil on my head. I don't have any tinfoil right now. I could run and grab some, but I can't. The Nets are doing this on purpose. The Nets are making this asking price just so ridiculously high because, one, they can. It is still Kevin Durant. But two, they know that with his age, they know that with his recent injury history, 90 games played over the last 3 seasons or whatever the number is at this point, they know that no team is really going to be willing to give up that much for Kevin Durant, which what could be maybe only a couple years of him, which I get it. If you're competing for a title, it's still one of the greatest players that we've ever had in this game. But the Nets don't want to make this trade. And I really do believe that as the summer goes on, it's going to continue to just simmer down. Everybody's going to roll their eyes like it's Aaron Rodgers, and it's a story that just gets exhausting after a while here too. And they're going to expect Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in training camp come September, and they'll be on the roster opening day. And there are still some, it's hard to find them now, but finding any odds in terms of where Kevin Durant is going to be when the season opens, the Nets are your best bet. They're usually mostly even money now at this point, so it's not like there's much value there. But that's what this situation has become. And if you're Durant and you look around and you go, well, I want to play in Phoenix. Well, one, we know now they can't trade anybody, and clearly they put in their offer. The Nets didn't want it, so they said, okay, we're sticking what we got because can't trade DeAndre Ayton until January, and he still has a no-trade clause for the first year. You can't trade Devin Booker for a year, and they weren't going to do that anyway, and they shouldn't have. Maybe the Celtics, but if I'm Boston right now, you're the favorites to win the NBA title. I know they may not be looking directly at the odds, but they know what their aspirations are. They know what their expectations are heading into this coming season. You've got a much younger team. You've got chemistry. You've got depth. The Celtics had to add 2 things, playmaking and shooting. They added playmaking in Malcolm Brogdon, and they added shooting in Danilo Gallinari. I understand that it is Kevin Durant, and we could say, well, it's one of the greatest players of all time, and that's great. But right now, you've built a team that's successful now, and that has the ability to be successful long-term with the youth that's also on that roster, with the depth that's all there. If I'm Boston, I understand having the conversation. Organizations, front offices do this all the time. The reality of this is the Nets are the best spot for Durant. The Nets know it, and I think Kevin Durant is going to eventually figure that out too.
Yeah, because they definitely will have to give up the world in order to get Kevin Durant in return. Another big name that's kind of been in the rumor mill has been Donovan Mitchell. Last night, he was at the Mets game in a Mets uniform. So I think people are starting to read into that and say, maybe he's going to a New York team. What's the latest on Donovan Mitchell?
Well, this is a little different than Kevin Durant, Chelsea, because if you look at the Knicks, they're very, very desperate. And I mean as desperate as any organization can be. Because if you look at them right now, they're kind of in a similar situation to where the Lakers have been, right? Where you look at Los Angeles and the Dodgers were winning, they won a World Series. And then the Rams just won the Super Bowl. And the Chargers at least have, playoff aspirations. And in a city like LA, you got to cut through the noise. It's more than just about having a winning team. It's about being relevant. People have a lot of stuff that they can do. In New York, it's the same thing. The Yankees and the Mets are both winning. The Jets are the Jets, but everybody likes Zach Wilson because he likes moms. So there's a whole conversation there about the Jets. And then you have the Giants where you're like, well, I don't know if they're going to be good, but they've got at least higher expectations with a new head coach, new general manager, and it'll be football season. If you're the Knicks, you're like, we're getting made fun of. Leon Rose doesn't talk to anybody, puts out weak statements after the draft when they decide, we're just not going to draft anybody in one of the deeper drafts that we've had in a long time. So they need to do something to make themselves relevant. Donovan Mitchell will end up in a Knicks uniform. When that is certainly still to be determined. They have the most to offer, and they're the most desperate right now. But when you look at the Knicks, they could still be a play-in team right now, even if they have Donovan Mitchell. Because you look at the rest of the East, it is so deep. You had 2 teams in the play-in tournament last year that still won 43 games. I mean, I'd go down the list and find you 7 teams right now that the Knicks aren't better than, even if they trade for Donovan Mitchell. But what it is, it's about relevance now, and it's about setting themselves up to possibly going to get, and I know they play this game all the time, another star maybe in the free agent market in a couple of seasons, because Donovan Mitchell's only 25. So it's not going to be about this year. So don't worry about the Knicks playoff odds. They shouldn't change too much because they're just not going to be that much better of a team in the Eastern Conference, given everybody that's in front of them, including the Cavs. And I love the Cavs this year, especially over 42.5 wins for them. But this is just a Knicks team that's going to still be a little more relevant with a star, but not that great of a team.